Thanks for being here, and I know you're not here to listen to me talk, you just want to decorate a cake, so I won't waste your time with that. First, the things that we need. Number one, cakes. We're not baking cake right now. I'm not talking about recipes, so please have these prepared. I have 4 layers ready to go. Turntable, grip pad, cake board, offset spatula, cake scraper, clothes star piping tip, piping bag, elastic, chocolates, sprinkles, food coloring, and I practiced picking them up like that 3 times and I think it went very well, so I hope that you liked it. And then there's a couple things from your kitchen that we will need for this cake. Wax paper, cling wrap, a totally random cup, and a bowl or a cake pan, some scissors, some tape. Let's go. Place your cup in front of you and then take your piping bag and roll down the top of it. This way you can easily place it inside the cup and fill it with frosting without making a mess. Lift the sides of the bag as you go so that you can continue to fill it with frosting. Remove the bag, press the frosting toward the bottom of the bag, making it so that you can twist the top to secure before adding a rubber band to hold it all in place. Now cut your bag to make an opening that's the size you like. Prep for your cake by adding the grip pad to the turntable and then placing your cake board on top. Now we'll take the melted chocolate, which you put in the microwave for 30 seconds, stirring occasionally, and place that in the center of your cake board. Now we'll add the first layer of your cake. However, make sure you used a knife to level off the top. When you bake a cake, it typically is a dome and it's not as easy to work with. You also want to make sure all your layers are a similar height. I place my cakes bottom side up. I just find that it's easier to frost this way. Now let's make a circle around the cake with the frosting, working our way towards the middle. If you're using a piping bag for this rather than just placing the frosting with the spatula, make sure you apply the pressure from the top of the bag. As you use the spatula to smooth out the frosting, you may want to use the bowl or pan to scrape off the excess as you go. Now we'll add the next layer, and it's best to get down to eye level so you can see if it's even. You can make adjustments by pressing on one side or another until it looks just right. Now let's add some more frosting. And notice as I go that I stop and I move the frosting toward the bottom of the piping bag to make sure I have good pressure to work with. I decided to make a 3-layer cake, but you can also do 2 or 4. 4 is a little tricky to work with for starting out because it can lean one way or another, so I would recommend going with 2 or 3. Now we can add frosting to the sides. I like to apply the frosting first to the cracks in between the layers, but it really doesn't matter which way you go about it, and then I spread it out around the whole cake. Now let's get the frosting scraper, and your natural instinct is to just put it right on the side like this. However, you want to be at an angle. It's a lot easier to work with, and my tip is to make sure the bottom of the scraper stays right on the cake board. That way you're working with a right angle. Continue to gently scrape down the sides. We're really smoothing more than scraping, just so that we can get rid of air bubbles. Now this is our crumb coat. It's just to seal in the cake. It's okay if your layers are showing through the frosting, and it helps to get rid of the excess as you go. To avoid having dramatic seams, be very gentle when you place the scraper onto the cake, and same thing, when you take it off, don't just lift it up immediately. Continue to turn the table and gently lift it as you go. Let's get down to eye level so we can make these edges nice and sharp. Watch as you move the spatula into the cake and wipe it off every single time with each pass. For this step, I also use a towel to wipe off my spatula because it is very important that it's clean for each time you move it toward the center. Don't worry too much about the top of your cake. You can try and make it smooth, but again, this is just the crumb coat, and to be honest with you, I find this to be the most challenging part of making a cake, making the top look nice. You can use your spatula to scrape the cake board to remove any mess that you made, and there's always a mess. Choose a few colors that you like. I picked 3 and mix each one into its own bowl of frosting. Now for the fun part. This does not need to be neat and clean at all. If you chose 3 colors, work your way from the bottom to the top, adding them however you'd like. I sort of did a line of each color. You can even be totally random with it. Whatever you feel like doing, just go for it. Very gently use the scraper. You want to apply very little pressure at first and then apply more as you go to keep smoothing it down. You might have bubbles like this. If that's the case, just add some frosting right on top of them and then we'll smooth it out again. Notice how gently I'm starting at first when I smooth over these bumps. Remember to remove the excess as you go. I decided to add some purple to the top of my cake as well, but if your crumb coat was thick enough, you definitely don't need to do this step. Whatever you feel like doing. When you add frosting to the top of your cake, you'll notice that it ruins the nice neat edges. So you'll have to scrape it down again. And I actually find that I'll scrape the sides, then I have to level the top, then I scrape the sides again, and then I level the top. Sometimes you just have to repeat the process. Now let's make some crisp edges. I felt like I needed to use the side scraper again, and when that's the case, you may need to level the top again. Just repeat as needed. Remember that you can clean up your cake board using your spatula. Now let's roll out some wax paper. We're going to actually cut a strip and wrap it around the whole cake. That's why I have the cake pan here. I'm going to use it to make sure I measure correctly. It helps to make the strip a little bit longer so that it's easy to tape your ends together. I didn't leave myself enough room, so I went ahead and cut a second piece, but I hope you get it on the first try. As you wrap the cake and you go to tape the ends, just keep in mind that the space you leave on the bottom is for a band of sprinkles. I did about an inch or so, but you can make it as thick or as thin as you'd like. Now let's add sprinkles to the space that you left at the bottom of your cake. We're going to pipe a border on the top of the cake, so I wanted to show you this trick. This will allow us to use multiple colors in the border. Now that you've laid down your plastic wrap, we're going to add multiple colors into this by making stripes. Now roll up the frosting, and then we'll cut the end of it to make an opening. Now take the piping tip you're using and place it inside the bag. I'm using the large closed star tip. Then you need to cut an opening. Just be careful not to make it too large. You really just want the end to peek through. So plop in your frosting and just make sure the opening is the end that's down near the piping tip. Twist the top, secure with a rubber band, and I just didn't like how much extra there was on the end, so I cut that off. Now that the cake is frozen, we can carefully remove the wax paper to reveal the super cool band of sprinkles down at the bottom. I apologize for the poor lighting here, but I did want to show you working from top to bottom what type of border we're going to do. I think it's just really easy to see it this way. Now let's move on to the cake. You want to go up and down to make your circles. So down, up, and keep moving forward so that you can keep on making your border. When you need to stop, try to end at the bottom, because when you reconnect, you go over it again, so you don't even see that seam. I didn't make the most seamless ending here, but you know what? That's what sprinkles are for. Let's just cover it up. Now have some fun with it. Add some sprinkles if you want to add a cake topper, some candles if this is for a birthday, whatever you'd like to do. Now here's a close-up of my finished product. I hope you love what you made too.